Welcome back to part 4 of our explainer series, The Unheeded Word. Over the previous parts of this journey, we've watched the Word of God get neglected, distorted, and violently rejected across the entirety of the Old Testament. But remember the incredible other half of this pattern we've been tracking. God never stops sending. And as we cross the threshold into the New Testament, the sending doesn't just continue, it actually escalates. The book of Hebrews gives us the structure of this entire story in a single magnificent sentence. It tells us right off the bat that God's persistent sending of messengers did not just end at Malachi, not at all. Instead, it climbed. It climbed to its ultimate, unparalleled peak. So let's take a look at how this sending escalates. What's really fascinating here is that the final messengers arrive exactly as the established pattern predicts. First, you have the Forerunner, John the Baptist, then the Son himself, and finally the apostles and prophets stepping right into the church age, which brings us to the Forerunner's fate. Take our first New Testament messenger, John the Baptist. He arrives with a blunt warning that mere descent from Abraham was no shelter from the coming judgment. And how is he received? Well, exactly as the pattern predicts, with a deeply mixed reception. The common people, and even despised tax collectors, came to be baptized. But in stark contrast, the text tells us the Pharisees willfully rejected the will of God for themselves. Ultimately, John is imprisoned and beheaded just to satisfy a petty grudge. As Jesus put it, they did to him whatever they wished. This brutally confirms that the old pattern of killing the messengers had officially resumed. And then, the Son's rejection. Here we hit the climax of the sending, the Son himself. Jesus enters the narrative, unmasking hypocrisy and drawing an even sharper line of division. The common people heard him gladly. A few leaders quietly believed. But the pushback? It was severe. His own hometown of Nazareth literally tried to throw him off a cliff. And eventually, the official national leadership formally condemned him. All of this resistance culminates in a single, devastating phrase echoing from the crowds, "Crucify him." The nation's final, chilling verdict on the Son of God was absolute and devastating. But the Apostle John holds both of these notes together in one breath. He writes that his own did not receive him, but as many as did receive him became children of God. You see, while rejection is dominant, it is never total. There is always a faithful remnant who hears. Moving into the Apostolic age. Following the resurrection, the apostles carry the word outward into the Roman Empire, and the escalation absolutely explodes. At Pentecost, 3,000 people are converted in a single day. Soon it's 5,000. The texts even record that a great many of the priests became obedient to the faith. Yet immediately, the pushback matches the expansion. Arrests, floggings, and the scattering of the church follow almost instantly. James is executed by Herod. Antipas is killed at Pergamum. The Apostle Paul plants churches across the entire empire, but he is hunted, stoned at Lystra, beaten at Philippi, and plotted against constantly. It is profoundly telling that Luke's very last recorded scene of the Apostle Paul has him quoting Isaiah chapter 6 over a room of unbelieving hearers. That is the exact same text about the hardening of hearts that echoed through the whole Old Testament. The ancient resistance was alive and well, because it really is one continuous story. Do you see how the New Testament refuses to treat these events as a series of unrelated tragedies? It deliberately ties the rejection of the prophets, Christ, and the apostles together. The failures vividly rhyme. The Old Testament tragedy of losing the book of the law inside the physical temple perfectly mirrors the New Testament leaders diligently searching the scriptures, yet willfully missing the Messiah standing right in front of them. Stephen, standing on trial before the Sanhedrin, gathers 1,000 years of history into a single blazing indictment. He explicitly ties the historic rejection of the prophets to their contemporary betrayal of the Just One. He calls out the pattern right to their faces. And he was instantly stoned to death for saying those exact words, which, tragically, is the pattern proving itself true one more time. So, what does this mean today? Now that we've seen this transtestamental pattern laid bare, we have to turn the mirror toward ourselves. We must ask, are we merely consuming biblical teaching as comfortable entertainment, just like Ezekiel's hearers did? Or are we actually submitting to it? Second, just as Judah falsely trusted the physical temple for security while breaking the covenant, we have to ruthlessly examine ourselves. Are we using modern religious credentials or traditions as a substitute for true obedience? We've seen both testaments now. 2 movements, 1 story. I want to leave you with the only question from this explainer that finally matters. When the unheeded word speaks directly to your life today, When it challenges your comfort, will your first instinct be to harden your heart, or will you hear?